You can call me Buster, and welcome back to another episode of Penny Ruined Standard. Today, I am back on the map Coastal Assault, and today we're fighting against the player Wave. Not Brave, Wave. So this is one of my, my archive of replays that I have, and I'm trying to get through these now. I'm trying to release these more often, because I'm well aware of how infrequent my uploads have been, but not to date the episode or anything. This is back when I still played as Green. Nowadays I play as Teal, but back at this point, Teal was not in the game. Also, I have little blue light blockers on my glasses now, so I totally look like Deegis. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So, if you haven't seen this map before, I've played this map before on the series. I believe it was the second episode where I was playing against Hurricane Slash. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and check out the playlist on my channel of Penny Ruined Standard, and you can see all the old episodes. But to get started here, I'm going to show my opponent's CO. He's playing as GAGE, and this was also before GAGE Plus was added to TinyWars. There is a rebalanced version of GAGE, but this is not that. This is the original. So he has a CO zone of 2, as you can see right here. His CO power and zone expansion is all regular vanilla numbers. All units get 10/10, just like every unit does, and then indirect and naval units in his zone get plus 20, plus 10, for a total of plus 30, plus 20. So he is the indirect CO. That's his main thing, and then his superpower gives him extra attack range on his indirect units, and everything else is the same as his day-to-day. So that is GAGE. And we are, of course, playing Penny again. We're going to be rolling that CO power, hoping for rain. And I learned a couple tricks on this map from the last time I played, so let's get started. Alright, so Wave begins. He is going to place a couple of infantry and send his lander here. Now, this was actually a bit of a mistake. I loaded up my infantry right here. I could have just... well, actually, no, never mind. What I was going to say is I could have built an infantry right here and loaded that up the next turn, and what I'm trying to do is send it over to this port so that I can go 1-2, and then the next turn 1-2-3, and grab this factory, because it's important to get the factory as soon as possible. But the reason I did it turn 1 is because I wanted to build a bike here, because this, and this. All these cities are 4 tiles away from each other, so an infantry cannot do a capture chain on these. However, a bike can, so I wanted to build a bike right here. And on this map you start with 4k income, 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th radar here, and of course you need to cap your opponent's radar on this map. So I also built this infantry over here to eventually go for that radar, and we're going to start doing our captures. And my dog Reggie is in the room. Everyone say hi to Reggie. He's not going to show up on the face cam because stand-up desk height. Anyway, my opponent is going for all of his captures. He's going to go for his factory over here. Next turn I'm going to start my factory cap. I did, oh, and I forgot to silence my phone too. This is just a great start to my recording here. I know you guys don't care though. So let's go ahead and continue. My opponent continues to finish his caps. He's going for his factory now, and he throws a couple of infantry into the center. So he's already exerting some pressure down there. I am capturing my buildings as well. I decide to send my bike over here to at least try and stop him from pressuring these 2 cities. That's very important to me, and we're both going to be starting to send our infantry down to the corner so that we can cap each other's radar, and as he does. And this infantry is heading that way. This infantry is going to head over to that city next turn, and my opponent builds his first tank. It is that part of the game. I have 9k, so I'll be able to do a tank and an infantry on this turn, since I don't have this factory right down here yet. My opponent is capping these two cities instead of trying to come down here, so I'm going to cap this city in the center with my bike. Now, on my opponent's turn, he's going to send even more infantry into the middle, you can see here. But the fact that he loaded it off here isn't the best, although it does put that infantry in range to start capping this city. So I'm going to cap some of my cities, cap the opponent's radar. It's important to do that as soon as you possibly can. And I immediately load up my CO into this tank and send it straight into the middle to start contesting this area as hotly as possible. Now, something interesting you'll see is this infantry right here on the right side. I'm going to try a little gambit. I'm going to rush up to take this city early, and we'll see how that works out for me. But that is something I did this game, and keep that in your back pocket. My opponent, meanwhile, is only going for his city that is closer to himself, which is usually kind of what you do on this map. But I'm going to try something a little different. So I'm going to pause real quick. With the enemy's CO tank coming over this way, I decided to send Penny over to the left, and I make a defensive wall with these two bikes so that this tank won't be able to get the first strike. And I'm going to try to start farming some energy over here away from where the enemy CO unit is, because for Penny, it's really important to farm energy as soon as possible. And trying to contest your enemy's CO unit is not a great way to do that, because you might end up just dying. So, at least on this map, I found it was a pretty good idea to send my CO unit to the opposite front that my opponent was sending theirs. And I also built an artillery, a tank, and did I actually base skip here? Looks like I did. Yeah, I might have miscounted on this one. One thing I want to make exceedingly clear, this was one of the first ranked matches I played where I used simulation a lot. On like 3 separate turns I had to use the simulator. Now watch this infantry here. See, I'm capping, but I'm going to move it up and forego this capture because I see, hey, this is actually working out. My opponent doesn't have anything here to stop me, so I can get this cap, and we'll see how long I can hold on to it. That's the big thing when you're rushing a contested property like this. Now, this place is looking very dangerous. It's very scary. He used his lander to transport his CO unit back over to where Penny is. And now there's another tank, there's still this tank here, and an artillery, which under Gage's CO zone can be very scary. So I need to be very careful of this. Another thing to keep in mind on this map is these two bases that are kind of river locked here. It's very tough to send stuff around over the river because you have to go through 2 forests and around the whole river. It's just kind of a pain. So mostly you see a lot of mech and infantry spam here. And because of all of the mech spam, it makes it very tough to just throw tanks at the problem, as you might usually. And, a spicy play! My opponent's building a rocket on turn 10, ladies and gentlemen. And he also is able to build a mech and a tank, so he doesn't base skip for that. He actually was saving up for that. A very nice play. Of course, with Gage, if you can boost that rocket, it's going to be very useful. I imagine he wants to plop it down right here so that he can pressure the center and also just the area around the island. If you could get one over here as well on both of these islands, he will basically have the center on lock. Meanwhile, I'm moving my CO unit over here, just trying to farm some energy, and I also have a lot of units in the center, but my opponent starts making a hard push near my HQ. This is a very scary push right here. 3 tanks, including a CO unit and artillery. Luckily, it's not in the CO zone, but even so, there's all these tanks, and I only have the 1 tank here. And meanwhile, my opponent is starting to capture this, and I realize I kind of need to hold this city. Hold on, there's a lot going on here that I am not talking about, so I gotta pause. Since I kind of went out of my way to capture this city early on, you can see I am 2 cities in the lead. If I let my opponent take this city back, we're going to be even again. And he's ahead on units, both in terms of numbers and value. So I think it's probably a good idea to stop this. You know, I want to try to make sure I keep that income as long as possible. And I think with my tank, my few mechs, a recon, I can probably stop him from capping this. So I'm going to do that. Meanwhile, I am using a lander to transport a medium tank and another tank both into the center here, because I see I need a huge force over here. I send this tank from the factory over, and I need to front switch all of these guys over as soon as possible. So that's what I'm going to do once I'm finished making my moves on the opponent's HQ side. Here we go. So I need to keep my CO unit safe. I don't have a lot of energy, but I really don't want to be losing the energy, and I especially don't want to have to spend the money to load another CO unit. So there we go, double tank and a mech, saving up a little bit of money there. And the enemy now making another big push. We all saw this coming. There wasn't much I would be able to do about it because these tanks and artillery and things... Oh, by the way, that was the rocket actually shooting a free infantry that I had left right there. That was a little bit of a blunder on my part, but it's kind of okay because it means I delay this thing getting into position for a turn. And meanwhile, yes, the opponent did build a second rocket, so he's trying to get the center on lock. But meanwhile, the main fight is happening here. Now, I'm going to go back to the start of this turn. This was the first turn where I was really in need of the simulator. I wanted to try and find a way to shoot this artillery. I was able to find a way to do it. I wanted to shoot the artillery and also interrupt this cap, if possible. However, the only way to kill the artillery, I think, required... Either it required a luck roll or it was just impossible. So this next sequence of moves down here is very deliberate. I had to go over there because I wanted to make sure I could stop this tank from coming down and shooting my CO, interrupt the cap, and set my artillery in range to cover the city in case he tries to restart the cap with an infantry. And notice that the only things in range of the enemy artillery... Oh, never mind. Never mind. I was going to say, oh, I only left this tank in range, but no, my CO unit is actually totally in range of that, so ignore that. That might have been a bad play on my part, but I think it works out. We'll figure it out. And some very deliberate positioning over here as well. We've got a positional battle going on the opponent's HQ side. That's going to come to a head in a little while. Now this, I think, a little bit of a blunder. The opponent shoots my tank here with his artillery and then finishes it with this mech. If it were me, I think I might have shot the Penny CO tank with hopes of getting it weakened. Now, I think he is going to shoot it. No, he doesn't. Instead, he's just taking out my tanks, but now... I don't know. Penny has 25 energy. The one thing you don't want to see when you're playing Penny is a power, you know? Because that's all she has going for her. If you can deny that, it's usually, you know, GG. But let's see what we got. First of all, the enemy rocket does get into position here. It's on this city. This rocket is also almost into position. Luckily, the fight is not really taking place in the center. Luckily for me, that is, because all these rockets are a menace to society. At least the society of the green units, as it were. So, this was another turn where I felt the need to use my simulator, my turn planner, and I do manage to take out the enemy GAGE CO tank, and I actually chose to build a tank right here and send it around. I guess because I see I am getting out-tanked over here. I do have all the mechs. Those are very nice for keeping tanks at bay, but it's just an interesting play that I was actually thinking to send a bunch of tanks over here. A lot of the time, if you have tank advantage, you are doing pretty well. That's not always the case, but in a lower-ish level match like this, it'll usually make it work. Now, this turn kind of sucks. I'm losing some tanks. I got my artillery shot all the way down to 1. And luckily, though, there's only 1 tank, and I have 4 over here. The GAGE CO tank is on its way, but it's not here yet. I have 49 energy. So, my next goal is to farm. I've got to get that energy. I've got to get that CO power. And, obviously, my hope is to get rain. But realistically, I just want anything that is not snow, because snow sucks. Yes, it does. I mean, you can still do plays with it, obviously. It's an advantage, but it's not as good as the others. And there we go! Unfortunately, it is not rain, but it's the next best thing. It's Sandstorm, ladies and gentlemen. I would play the song, but it's copyrighted. Yeah! So I was able to farm. I got it. Sandstorm will do us wonders here. It does mean that I'm going to be able to make a nice push. Opponent blunders, left his rocket out to be shot, and I'm also in the minimum range of this artillery right here. Very, very nice. And with all these tanks, medium tanks, I'm sitting pretty on my HQ side. And here comes the death push on my opponent's side. With the backup of the Sandstorm, I'm not going to be taking nearly as much damage as I should. And with also all these tanks approaching, it's going to be a little bit tough for my opponent, I'd say. At least that's the hope. Meanwhile, though, I am losing a few tanks. Like I said, all the mech spam over here makes it hard to just throw tanks at the problem. Random tank, go! Tank, go! The mechs will just cover each other all day long, and it's pretty troublesome. Meanwhile, in the center, yeah, rockets are being a huge pain, but I didn't lose my medium tank, and that is the important thing here. And here we go. I also simulated this turn. This was a very important turn. Now, I could have shot this tank with my mech, but I have a couple of tanks in range right here. I figure, okay, this artillery is actually not covering this tank at all. I can just move these tanks in, move this guy out of range of the artillery, and then I can use this mech to capture the opponent's radar, which is what I was already planning to do with it. So that's exactly what I do. I'm going to shoot the tank once, shoot the tank twice, and unfortunately I missed a luck roll and did not kill it, but that's okay. It's going to go up to 3 HP next turn, but in Sandstorm it's not going to matter much. And meanwhile, we're going back over to... I'm kind of playing all over the place here. I've got to be very careful not to lose my CO again. At least I don't want to. It's kind of okay now that Sandstorm is going, but... and the war tank comes. He realizes he's in big trouble down here. He has to do something to stop all of these extra tanks that I have, or else he's going to lose his HQ. And meanwhile, there's still so much value that's just sitting here doing nothing in the center. This rocket, it has 1 kill. I think it shot a bike or something. It it hasn't exactly earned itself in yet. I don't know if this artillery, it looks like it, I don't know if this thing has even shot a single time. I'm not sure. It might have, but I don't think they've earned their value. This artillery maybe has by shooting on my medium tank a little bit. No, it would have to do 5 damage to a medium tank. And it hasn't. It just hasn't yet. Meanwhile, I'm pushing everything I have into the corner fronts. You can see by now I've pretty much evacuated everything out of the center. I don't want to get shot by all these rockets and things. And as a result, my opponent has had to retreat a little bit on my HQ, and I am pushing very, very hard on his HQ. So, the last turn that I know I had to simulate for was this one. I wanted to see, man, he has a lot of stuff here now, but I also have a lot of stuff that I can body block with. Let's see what we can get done here. So I start by capping the radar. I move some things very deliberately, move them out of the way, go for the cap, shooting some things, moving some units. I joined these tanks in hopes of making them a better defensive wall. And I shoot that tank just for good measure. Now, there is a way for the opponent to stop this, if I remember correctly. I also simulated this from his point of view. If he uses this tank to shoot this infantry, uses this artillery to shoot down one of these two, and then a tank to shoot that, I believe he can get 2 shots on this tank. I don't remember how it works. There is a way. Oh, I built a carrier. At this point, I was pretty sure that I had it on lock. I'd say this is a bad manner carrier right here. I even base skipped for it. And bravely goes to try and do something about it, but under the sandstorm, he just can't do enough damage, and he resigns. So, a very good game. I applaud Wave. He did very well. Actually, if we look here, let's go back. You can see it is 22 cities to 18, which, let's actually go back to the start of my turn. When you see, because I only just capped this radar at the dead end. We were only, the 2 city discrepancies stayed there. I was able to hold this city the entire game, which was honestly kind of lucky on my part. I didn't know at all if I would be able to do that going into it, but it ended up working out for me. And I guess just that small income discrepancy, along with the fact that he kept a lot of value kind of sitting in the center doing nothing, was a big contributor to why I was able to overpower my opponent on this particular game. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this game. I'm going to go ahead and start commentating the next one. That's the word I was looking for. As you can see, Wave is actually a pretty good standard player. He's 1465, and as of the recording, I'm only 1242. So, yeah, I might be a little underranked here. Maybe. But I don't know about that. Wave is a pretty good player. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, thank you guys ever so much for watching this replay commentary. Please remember to leave a like if you did enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe before you go. It is free, it is easy, and you can always change your mind later. But until next time, goodbye everyone. It's nighttime.